Alright, today we're going to be discussing the topic, felons having guns. And this comes up because there was some action going on in Florida, which we're going to touch on in this video, so be ready for that. But before we get into that, don't forget to shop at onlytacticalfans@shopify.com. Again, permanently demonetized from YouTube, and that's how I pay my bills. And I apologize for not dropping a video yesterday, but the appeals court asking those questions, it just had me all stressed out and I couldn't think straight. So we're back at it, because I probably should have actually done this video yesterday. Anyways, felons with guns. Where did this all come from? Why is this an issue? Like, what are we talking about here? So it started in 1938. In 1938, they decided that violent felons could be disarmed. That was the first, American. Now, you could wind it back farther because they did actually prohibit blacks and Indians from having guns, but that was more of a racial thing because they considered those not people. Because the Second Amendment says the right of the people, you know what it says. Anyways, the point is, it describes people, right? Well, they were like, well, Indians and black people are not people, so therefore they're not covered by the Second Amendment, therefore we can restrict their guns away. And again, that's already when they're starting to twist things. Because remember, the Second Amendment isn't granting us permission for anything. What it's doing is putting restrictions on the government. None of the amendments really affect us. It tells the government what they can and can't do. Here's the laws you can operate under. Specifically, the Second Amendment, you cannot mess with guns. Shall not be infringed. These are necessary for the free state. So anyways, that happened. So, technically that happened first. But we're talking about just in general, on the books. Where did it start? 1938, we got violent felons. Obviously, they're going to erode it from there. Democrats got into power. They did a bunch of stuff. 1934, we're talking about the NFA, etc., etc., etc. Next, it gets leveled up. In 1968, they come out with the GCA and the 922G laws. And they go from violent felons all the way back to if you have a sentence. Now, you don't have to sit this long, but if your sentence carries a maximum term longer than 1 year, you are now a prohibited person. And somehow, they thought that was going to stop Oswald or something like that. I don't really understand the justification for it, but it's in power in 1968. Well, there's some constitutional issues there. You can't just do that. You can't just say somebody can't have a gun forever. Not have a gun forever. And that's when they came out with a 925C. That was put out in 1968. That was, alright, I've had a sentence for longer than 1 year. It was an OWI, or I was speeding, or I was pirating videotapes, right? That's no reason to be a prohibited person for life. Well, I have this option, which is 925C. I can go back in front and I can apply to have my gun rights back, which is completely ass backwards. That's not how it should work. We'll talk about that more at the end of the video. Anyway, so then after 1968, all right, so we're looking at people that just sit 1 year. It goes all the way to me. Currently, now they're saying if you make a YouTube commercial or a bad YouTube video, you can be prohibited for life. So we went from violent felons all the way to distasteful YouTube videos. Huge difference. So clearly something needs to happen. And a lot of this comes to head when Trump and Mel Gibson got involved. Because now we're talking about people with power. We were under gentlemen's rules before, and basically if you were in a position of power like Trump, or you were a famous actor like Mel Gibson or something like that, they knew not to apply laws to you because otherwise you could change the laws. Because the laws are for the other people, the subjects. They're not for the people in power. Well, they screwed up, and then they went after Trump. So that pulled the lever like, all right, let's take a look at these laws because clearly they're ridiculous. You can argue about Trump's case, what did or did not happen, but the fact of the matter is he got caught in the snare now, so what's probably going to happen? What's probably going to happen is 925C will come back into effect. It got defunded in 1992. Because remember, we had the whole gang violence thing, rap music's coming out, people are scared shitless. What do? Well, we're not going to want these people to get their guns back because we're going to want to hit people with frivolous felonies and give them sentences for longer than 1 year and take their guns. Well, we can't do that constitutionally. So what we'll do is we'll just defund 925C. And again, that happened in 1992. That was under Bush, but every president since that has upheld that, right? I heard Trump had refunded this. When I looked on the internet and I asked the AI and the internet is both saying he absolutely did not. Now, it doesn't mean he's not going to, because I know there's a lot of talk about it, And I could definitely see him refunding something like that. And I did hear something about like $100,000 or something that go into the program. But from what I understand right now, from the best information I can gather, currently, right now, no one can use that. It's not funded. Maybe there was money set aside. Maybe the money never got there. Maybe this is a hypothetical money that hasn't happened yet. I don't really know. I was very confused about this because I'm like, oh, but Trump refunded that, right? And the AI is like, no, it did not. So then I started pulling sources and stuff, and yeah, I can't find anywhere where it says that Trump did refund that. So maybe the internet and the AI's got it wrong, but they're saying right now it's not refunded. We'll have to see how that goes. I do know that there was definitely talks about that, so we'll probably likely see that get refunded. Which brings us to, bam, today. What's going on right now? And that is the Florida case, the Christopher Morgan. So basically, in Florida, dude was in Pennsylvania, and he had a gun. Some sort of Pennsylvania law I don't fully understand because it makes no sense. Like, he didn't have the proper permits or something like that. Like, what? Where in the Second Amendment does it say you can regulate guns if they don't have a proper permit? So, that in itself is likely unconstitutional. Anyways, so he gets pulled over in Florida, not committing a crime. Well, I mean, he got pulled over, so there must have been some sort of moving violation involved, I'm assuming. Don't know the facts on it. But anyways, not robbing anyone, not threatening anyone, not pulling his gun out and doing bam, bam, bam. Like, just pulled over. And he admitted to the officer he had a glove in the, gun in the glovey, the center console. So, they wind up hitting him with a felony. Well, he appeals it, obviously, because he should, that, hey, this is BS, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the state of Florida, they actually, like, step in, and they tell the courts, like, hey, you got this wrong. Our Florida gun laws are likely unconstitutional. The law he got hit with is likely unconstitutional. We want you to give him his gun rights back. And that's pretty amazing. I haven't ever heard of a case like that before, and that's why it's making big news. Now, cases like that could have happened, but I never heard of them. This is the first time I've heard of something like that happening. So that's pretty cool. Now, let's wind back to what should probably be going on. Right now, say 925C gets refunded, and I think it's going to, it just hasn't yet. Again, I don't know the details on this. This is just what I could find. It's a case-by-case basis. It basically has to go in front of a judge, and the judge has to be like, oh, you're not a dangerous person. The problem is, how many judges are actually going to want to re-give somebody their gun rights back? I'm assuming that is low. And that's the whole problem with this. That's why we need to wind back to the 1968 GCA and take that off the books. Look, if you want the 38 violent felons to be in effect, I mean, that, not a lot of people are going to argue with you about that. I'm a little bit of an extremist when it comes to that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But let's go back to 1968, where they got it wrong. In 1968, the 925C law, you have to go by a case-by-case basis to get your gun rights back, and that's reverse. It should have been the judges have to go by a case-by-case basis and justify why you can't have a firearm. I mean, it's not going to create them any work. If you're going to prison or something like that, you're already going in front of a judge. So it's just one more checkbox. So we got this violent person coming through. In the sentencing, the judge just adds in there, hey, this is a violent person. We are going to prohibit him for life from having a firearm. This is why. This is his crimes. This is justifiable for him to be disarmed. Instead, if this gets refunded, you're going to have to be like, please, can I have my gun rights back? And they're going to have to be like, well, sure or no, and now I have to justify why. And it should have never got to that point. That, like, for my case, I should have went in front of the judge at sentencing, and he should, well, it was a chick. The chick should have justified, he's going to be disarmed because of X, Y, Z. And it would have sounded pretty ridiculous if he's going to be like, he's going to be disarmed because he made a distasteful YouTube video. Obviously, they see it as conspiracy to transfer machine guns, but conspiracy to transfer machine guns because the lawyer would have obviously come back like, hey, this isn't a violent crime. Why should he be a prohibited person for life? And if the judge was like, yes, he should be, well, now you can appeal that and get sort of a case precedence put into place that, hey, these crimes you can't disarm somebody for. And like I said, it needs to go by a case-by-case basis why you should disarm somebody, not why you should rearm them. Because, again, we're covered under the Second Amendment. A restriction on government, not a restriction on people. Ideally, now, again, I'm a little bit of an extremist on this, and I was even before I got incarcerated, so don't say it's because I got incarcerated. Ideally, what I think should happen is if you're not in prison, you're not on paper, and there's no restraining order, there's no reason you can't have a firearm. With the exception that a judge specifically rules or sentences you to be prohibited for life. Maybe you're mentally defective or something like that. You haven't broken any crimes, but there's proof that you are incapable of handling that kind of responsibility. Because if somebody's dangerous enough to hurt somebody with a firearm, why in the shit aren't they in prison? Really, I mean, if we got Jeffrey Dahmer here, who clearly should not have a firearm because he's a serial killer, why is he not incarcerated? Explain that to me. Explain to me why somebody should be on the street and not be allowed to fully integrate into society. All your arguments with, well, because they're a rapist, or because they killed people, or because they have violent criminal history, okay, then why are they on the street in the first place? And if, like, all right, so maybe a life sentence isn't appropriate for that one, put them on paper for life. If you're on paper, you can't have a firearm. So, dangerous person should clearly be incarcerated. Okay, you know, not everybody should get a life sentence, so the next step over that is, all right, give them really long paper. And if that's not enough, well, then the judge could be like, all right, so you've completed your prison sentence, you're going to be off paper. The problem is, when you were 17 years old, you killed a bunch of people. So, yeah, you're like 60 now, and you've served your term, but I'm going to put an order on you where you are banned for life. You just can't have any firearms. Simple. There's like almost nothing added on to what a judge would have to do. All they have to do is go by a case-by-case basis and check the box, yes, prohibited person. And that'll close this net down instead of just scooping up massive amount of Americans that get a year sentence for, I don't know, pirating cassette tapes. Oh, I pirated this cassette tape and now I caught a felony. Or I was going 200 miles an hour in a 35 zone and my sentence could carry a year. Now I'm a prohibited person. That doesn't even make sense. Now, if the judge checks that little box, because you're already going to have to go in front of the judge anyway, no extra work for the court system, bam, that solves that problem. Just having the judges go by a case-by-case basis instead of this massive dragnet just scooping up thousands of Americans every year that should not be prohibited people. I think the scope of it needs to be drastically narrowed. And I think that is going to happen. Like I said, I believe Trump is going to fund 925C because I swear I heard actual dollar amounts being discussed. You know, maybe this is the Mandela effect, but I swear, like, there was an actual dollar amount said that he was going to refund it with. And maybe the AI and the internet's just got it wrong, but when that gets refunded, well, now the next step is, okay, we're not going to give people firearms back by a case-by-case basis. You can only take them away with a case-by-case basis. Anyways, so we'll have to see how all that goes. The good news is we have positive momentum going forward. You can see the writing on the wall. It's all over the place. It can't be ignored. Pro-firearms, pro-freedom, pro-whatever you want to call it, pro-gun has now became a two-aisle issue. Just like how marijuana became a two-aisle issue, it was one issue just on one side, while the other side adapted. The same thing happened with the riots, the lockdowns, and then these random ICE officers going around snatching babies out of houses. It scared a bunch of people, and now they all want their firearms. So now it became a two-party issue. We are going to see massive steps forward going in winding back gun control. Because now these people that were like, oh yeah, guns are violent, you know, the school shootings and the little babies, and we need to take them away. Well, they're going to buy a gun now, and they're like, well, what do you mean I can't buy a gun? Because a ticket I got carried a sentence for more than a year, now I'm a prohibited person? These laws aren't for me. These are for the gangsters and the bad people. Well, they're learning that when the government talks about gangsters, bad people, dangerous people, they're referring to everybody that's not them. So they got roped into the net, and they're all figuring this out. So now we're seeing gun control just getting wound back, and people are getting more knowledgeable about firearms. It's becoming more of a mainstream issue. Because let's face it, in the early 2000s, it was getting pretty taboo. Like, it was fringe people that were into firearms, but social media's kicked on, people have just got more educated, their political views have shifted, and we've seen a drastic push forward I mean, just look at the gun sales alone. You can't hide those numbers. And those look, we're winning. That's the point. That's why I'm just going to wrap it up there. So anyways, if you'd like to help support the channel and you don't want to shop at Only Tactical Fans shop at Shopify.com, the next best way to do that is go down in the description. Click on that affiliate link. Just by clicking on that link. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, doing the Amazon shopping you're already going to do anyway. I have a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.